Podcast Answer Man, episode number 48.
This show is sponsored by AG Design.
Need a new website, logo, or artwork for your podcast? Visit ageedesign.com today.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and today we are going to talk about the topic of all topics of all podcasters. Well, not all podcasters. There's a lot of podcasters that are completely against the topic that I want to talk about today. But, you know, they're becoming fewer and further between these days than in old. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about sponsorships and monetization. Sponsorships and monetization. How do you get sponsors? How do you make money in podcasting? It's one of the biggest questions I'm asked these days. Cliff, you know, what in the world are you doing leaving your job? How are you going to support that wife and 3 kids of yours? I mean, this is just absolutely ludicrous. Well, I tell you, faith is a huge part of it, okay? Trust me, if I didn't feel called by God to do this, and if I didn't have the support and encouragement of my wife to go at this thing without even looking back, then I would not be doing it. But you know, the fact is that I believe I think it's possible. I think it's possible to do this thing, to get sponsors, to make money in podcasting. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about sponsorships to start off. This whole conversation, you know, basically, I'm recording this immediately following episode number 47. I literally went upstairs, grabbed myself something to drink, and came back down here, and here I am recording this. So it all came out of this discussion of Evan Agee, the sponsor of the Podcast Answer Man. He has been getting a lot of increased web traffic I personally feel, as a result of all the exposure he's gotten out of his sponsorships here at the Podcast Answer Man. Now, the thing is that how do you track that? How does he track that? Obviously, you know, web visitors aren't leaving behind little traces of saying, you know, hey, I'm here because I heard ageedesign.com today. You know, that they're not leaving that behind, and they're not necessarily coming from our site and then going over. So how do we track that? And one of the ideas is to do a landing page. I've heard audible.com podcasting on folks' podcasts quite a bit lately. And This Week in Tech, the Twit Network, TWIT.tv, they have a lot of podcasts that had been sponsored by Audible. And it says, hey, if you would like to receive your free audiobook, go to audible.com/twit. And see, I think that makes sense. But one of my concerns is that, you know, if I said, you know, hey, go to ageedesign.com/podcast, that's ageedesign.com/podcast. If I say that, I'm wondering, now, one of the things I know is my audience who listens to this, you guys. If I were to say, hey guys, I want you to support Evan Agee, if you have a need for his services as a graphic design, as a website guy, and I'm telling you, this guy does beautiful work. Don't look at the podcastanswerman.com site right now and say, oh my gosh, that's the work he does. Evan, I'm telling you, man, the best thing we're going to be able to do to help improve the sponsorship, we got to get the Podcast Answer Man. We got to get this thing cleaned up. But folks, trust me, that's not his fault. It's mine. I've been busy. I've got clients, and so he's doing work for me. He is doing work for me, paid work, work that's making me money. So he's working on CorvetteChief.com. He's getting ready to, as soon as he's done with CorvetteChief.com, he's going to be working on DiscoveringCincinnati.com, and then we're going to come fix PodcastAnswerman.com. But if you look at PodcastAnswerman.com, my blog, I want you to know that's not Evan Agee's work, okay? It is literally not. If you want to see a finished piece of work that he's done, go to bitcastmedia.com. That is one of the very first things he's ever done for us. Look at the logo for Bitcast Media. Look at the logo for GSPN.TV. Those items were done by Evan Agee. So if you need some help, go to Evan. He is awesome. Not only that, but one of the things I love about my sponsors is I try to really handpick my sponsors. I mean, people have been coming to me. I have turned down a sponsor or two. It may be shocking to you, but I have turned down a sponsor or two. And the reason why I just did not believe in their product. Okay, they wanted to sell something. They thought that, you know, if I had, you know, the listener base that I have, that, and, you know, they'll pay. They offered to pay quite a bit of money, and I'm like, you know, I'm sorry, but I believe this, and my audience knows this about me and what I believe, and this kind of goes against that, and I'm sorry, I can't. I just can't do it. And those are difficult discussions to have when you're looking at trying to make a living doing this. But it's something that I, you know, it's like, you know what, I don't believe in that. I don't. And I don't want my listeners to do it. Sure, they'll go anywhere else and find it. And they may find you, they may find somebody else, but I'm sorry, I can't help you. I just don't want to support that. And I won't say what it is, because it's not that big of a deal. The fact is I didn't take the sponsorship because I want you to know that I'm handpicking who my sponsors are. And it's nobody you know. Trust me, it's a relatively large organization out there, but it's nobody that's in the community or anything like that. So anyway, moving along. But Evan he's a guy that, you know, before we signed up our sponsorship, I literally drove from the Cincinnati area up to Richmond, Indiana to meet him in person. I felt that, you know, he lived close enough for me to do that. And by golly, before sitting down and making a lengthy agreement between he and myself, I know we had some phone conversation. I just wanted to meet the guy, you know, and say hi and get to know him just a little bit better. And it was a great meeting. And I tell you, I feel confident that if anybody needs some great looking websites, great graphics, anything, just go to agdesign.com and go ahead and go to /podcast and look. And then once you're there, go ahead and click on his services menu and see all the things that he has to offer. And his portfolio, he's got an increasing portfolio. Things are looking great over there. So check him out. But the thing is so we're talking about, you know, this whole going to a landing page. One of the things that I think it makes a lot of sense for folks is that, you know, the giving away a free audiobook obviously helps drive the traffic to that subdomain. Another thing is GoDaddy.com is a big sponsor of podcasts out there. And of course, you hear the, enter code number GB1 or, you know, palette 2 or all these different codes that you can type in. That's another way to track sponsorship. But as far as landing pages are concerned, I really, for any of these things for tracking, you almost have to have some kind of, you know, for the listeners of this, we'll do this, and so that's something I'll probably talk to my sponsors about from this point forward. Is saying, you know, if for tracking, is there any way? Is there something we can offer? I mean, you know, what is it that maybe will help drive, you know, an incentive, number one, to check it out. You know, people love a deal. You know, my wife can. It's really weird. And it's rather than talking about my wife, I'll just say women in general, I've noticed this of, and I apologize if I'm overgeneralizing and this is a stereotype and I should be shot. But anyway, one of the things that I've noticed is that, I don't know what it is, but you can have a store that charges, you know, 6 times what anybody else would ever imagine charging you for a pair of blue jeans. Let's just say it's $140, but by golly, you mark that thing down 70%. You know, and of course I'm horrible at math, so let's get $140 times 0.30, so 140 times 0.3. Okay, so you got a $140 pair of jeans, and you mark it down. Say, listen, we got 70% off, And so that's a $42 pair of jeans. But anywhere else, you could get an equivalent pair of jeans for $30. And they're $30 all the time. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, somebody's going to go over and say, you know what? This is 70% off. I got a $140 pair of jeans for only $42. I don't understand that. But I got it on sale. That I hate that phrase. That phrase has been the cause of more arguments in marriages, I think, than anything else. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. So when people think they're getting a deal, it is enticing. It is appealing. I know that when I mentioned that you can get a Heil PR40 microphone for $299 with us, and if you look online, you'll find that the lowest price anywhere else is $325. So it draws people in. People have been emailing me about the Heil PR40, and I've sold a couple of them, and I'm excited about that because it's helping to support what I'm doing here. So I wonder, that's something I need to think about. And why am I concerned about this? Okay, and I'm speaking to podcasters, so I'm speaking to you, and I'm speaking to you to understand. I want you to feel this if you start selling sponsorships, or if you happen to get a sponsor for your podcast. I think it's, if you think about it, it's relatively easy to sit down and say, okay, this is what I have to offer. This is my podcast. This is my audience, and sure, I'll allow you to be my sponsor, or I'd love for you to be my sponsor. And here's the amount, and we agree upon it, and you pay me. And then all I have to do is you could say, all I have to do is play a 30-second ad, or all I have to do is read this endorsement, or do this and put a link on my website. That's all I have to do. I will tell you what, that's true. That's probably in the contract. That's all you have to do. But if that's all you do for your sponsor, you have issues. You're going to have issues. And the issue that you're going to have is that he or she or they will not be a repeat sponsor on your podcast. You have to go the next level. You have to go to the next step. And that's why I think it's important for me to really get to know my sponsors, to build these relationships, because I want to be able to talk to people about my sponsor. I can tell you about Evan Agee's, little dog. You can go to his Flickr account and check his Flickr account and this little cute little dog he's got. I mean, I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head, but I know I've seen his dog. I've met his wife, and the guy is a super guy, and he does great work. He does it on time. He fulfills his promises. He's excellent to work with. Professionalism on top of. I mean, I used to use this thing called businesslogo.net or something like that, and paid lots of money. And they did, but trust me, they did some excellent work. Let me tell you. But same as the work that Evan did, in the same way about this methodology of having different conceptual concepts for logos, and then you get 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you say, well, let's try to change this and try to change this, and you get concept number 1B and 2B. And 3B, and then you get concept number 1C and 1D and 1F and 1G and 1 triple Z. No, seriously, he usually gets it right around, and you get it worked out around letter E and F or G, and you've got yourself a wonderful product, and it's so professional. So the fact I can talk to you about him like that's not something that you just take the money and run. You can't do it. I believe you have to be able to believe in the product. You have to know your audience and whether or not it's a good fit for them, and you have to make sure that it's great that you get the money, but it's very important that you do everything you can do to make this beneficial for your sponsor, because that's their money. And one of the problems that a lot of podcasters have is they undervalue the advertising. And I was looking online here. There's a blog called MWG Blog, MWGblog.com, and it says why podcast sponsorship deals are confidential. And I don't know who this guy is on this blog. Oh, well, it says here, Michael W. I know who Michael Gohagan is. I didn't know that. Okay, Michael W. Gohagen. So anyway, from Gigavox, I know him. Anyway, gosh, I feel like it. Okay, so in the last episode, you heard me say I needed to go to bed. Well, now I really need to go to bed. Anyway, Michael Gohagen says, in the last few weeks, there have been a lot of number of posts on the podcast discussion boards about sponsorship deals for podcasts, particularly those put together by podcast ad networks. Interestingly, nobody wants to state the total number of total compensation involved, or for that matter, the average compensation to the podcaster. It is confidential. Why is that? I know what it costs to run a 30-second ad during the Super Bowl. Why is it that the cost of sponsoring a podcast is top secret? The answer is simple. The amounts involved are embarrassingly low. I know they are. If they weren't, people would be leaking them nonstop. Instead, people are using terms like fair and we're excited about a major sponsor is involved. And that is code for underpaid. Unfortunately, most podcasters are not well positioned to demand their worth. They are relying on others to dictate the value of their shows. This means opportunity for the aggregation networks at the expense of podcasters. Nothing against the ad networks. I have some smart friends building them, and it's dumb to pass an opportunity like that. So I will tell you that a lot of people are underselling their sponsorships. I will tell you here at gspn.tv and at the podcastanswerman.com, that is not the case. My sponsorships are quite expensive. And I believe that the sponsors, I believe I work extremely hard for them, and I do everything within my power to help my community, my listeners, my loyal listeners, the ones who would really rely on Cliff. I make sure that I bring them value. I bring them people you can trust, and I bring them, products that would be appealing to them based upon the type of show that we're doing. And so with that, that's exactly what I bring. And you're not going to get the loyalty in the radio market, the TV market that you get in the podcast market. I mean, I consider many of my listeners my family. And so, bringing somebody in and trying to sell them something to my family, I'm going to have to check you out. And, and there's a lot of value involved in my relationship with people. And I'm not about to sell it short, and I'm not about to sell out. And that's why I made a point to tell you that I have turned down I've turned down at least 2 significant offers, okay? And you know what? And I'll continue to turn them down if it gets really bad. Now, let me read you another little tidbit of an article here. This is by a guy named Pete Lerma from the ClickZ Network. I guess they're a marketing firm. And he talks about the fact that, one of his clients is Travelocity and how he's gotten them involved and talked to him about the possibility of advertising and podcasting. And let's see here. I'm just going to start reading right down in the middle of this thing. It says, through sponsorships like Travelocity, big fish and even not so big fish podcasters can focus on doing what they do best, providing free, informative, and entertaining content for their listeners, and that benefits everyone. There's no formula to our approach, but I figured I could share how we made the sponsorship happen. The first thing you need to know at this point, it is a very manual process, and I will have to tell you I agree with that. There are podcasting networks that can make it easier for you to sponsor your podcasts, and I accidentally just clicked on a link there. But they're still pretty early in their development. A few of the networks include Podtrac, Kiptronic, the Podcast Network, Podshow, and I will tell you that Podango should be added to that list. Although, and I will tell you that I did not sign up with them. If you have not heard that or you're not aware of that, I've decided to try this myself rather than to allow others to secure that advertising for me. You'll probably want to try these networks, but do some exploring on your own as well, is what he says. And so actually I decided just to forgo trying these networks and trying it on myself. But that's because I'm going in this full time, and to give up a percentage, even no matter how small it is, to give up a percentage of that income is not something I was looking forward to doing. And there's some other things that, just the growth of our shows and the number of shows that we produce, I want to be able to manage this without any pressure of going one way or the other with anything. And so, I want to make my commitments to my sponsors and make those, talk about those agreements ahead of time and being fully involved in all the discussions without any issues whatsoever. So anyway, he says, here's the process we went through to identify the right podcast for our client, which would be Travelocity in this case. He says, number one, find top-ranked podcast. Whatever your category, there are podcasts that should be, there should be an appropriate fit for the podcast. In our case, we looked since it was Travelocity, in our case, we looked at iTunes' list of top travel podcasts. We also looked at travel publishers to see if they had podcasts. That gave us a starting point, a list of possible podcasts. Okay, so that's part one. So one of the things you can do is get up there in the top of your list. Grow your audience. Number two, listen and evaluate. Podcast quality can vary widely. Some are literally done in a kitchen or a living room. Others are professionally recorded, like this one. Content quality is also something you'll want to evaluate. Absolutely. And that's why you'll want a Heil PR40 microphone that you can get directly from Cliff Ravenscraft, the podcast answer man, at $299. The average or the lowest online price advertised anywhere is $325. And the Heil PR40 microphone makes you sound like gold. Anyway, since you want to make sure you're associating your brand with good quality, credible content. All right. Contact and negotiate. This is the most interesting part. Many of the podcasters we contacted had never been approached about sponsorship, nor had they given any thought as to how it might work. We had to talk about things like, how many subscribers do you have? What format would the sponsorship take? Live reads, which you just mentioned us, 10 or 15 or second or 30-second pre-recorded spots, like on what about links on the website, different things like that. The process felt very much like we were creating a new platform. There were a lot of conversations. Some podcasters were more organized than others. Some were more open to sponsorship than others. One final bit of advice, podcasters really know their audiences and what they might or might not be receptive to. Amen, brother. Don't try to push something if a podcaster expresses concern about how the audience might respond. Amen, amen. If you haven't considered a podcast sponsorship of your own, you should. And if you've experimented with podcast sponsorships, I'd love to hear about your experience. And so that's this is at clickz.com, and it's called No Formulas for Podcast Sponsorships. And his last little thing, it says, if you have a business and you have not considered a podcast sponsorship yet, today is the day to do it. Give it a shot. And I know this great network of podcasts put together by this guy and his wife, and they have this awesome, loyal community built around the shows that they produce. Listeners, just thousands of listeners all through the United States, and they have valuable, entertaining podcasts for people who are just totally diehard TV show fans, podcasts that are devoted to lifting up and encouraging families and moms, stay-at-home moms. I mean, these demographics are wonderful. You should check it out sometime over at gspn.tv, and then contact this guy named Cliff. His email address is cliff@gspn.tv, and say, I want to talk to you about one of those sponsorship deals. Can you tell that I'm leaving a life of sales? So anyway, yes, I would love to talk to you about a sponsorship. In fact, talking about sponsorships, another sponsor just signed on board, and I mentioned this in the last episode. And I also mentioned, and about, the fact is, I don't want to tell you all the details of the cost involved and stuff like that. I don't know why I don't want to tell you, but I don't think it's because it's embarrassingly low, because it's not. The one thing I will tell you is that it's going to pay our mortgage next month. And it's just it's going to be more than enough to pay our mortgage. It actually pay our mortgage 1.5 times. And it's for 6 episodes of The Full-Time Mom. Now, I'm not going to mention the name of the sponsor just yet, because I have not got a signed contract back. I will tell you, once I got off the phone with her, I had some other things that I was working on that night, and I literally stayed up until about 2 o'clock in the morning typing up the invoices. We're billing in 2 different payments. She's going to pay the first payment by next week. She's putting the check in the mail this weekend. And the other payment is due in 3 weeks. So she's paying for the first 3 weeks, and then she'll have the money for the next 3 weeks. And that's how we're working it out. And so I had to make up the invoices, and then I had to put together a contract. And so she would sign it. One of the things I don't want to do is have it to where, we weren't clear. We discussed the details of the sponsorship, how we would do the sponsorship and stuff like that. And I think it's important that if you're a podcaster, that you definitely write all that stuff down and you get a signed agreement. And, and just be clear, communicate with these people. I mean, and I want to suggest that you really establish a relationship with whoever it is that's working with you on the sponsorship. Create a relationship, a friendship, a bond. Do something, because this needs to be a partnership. You need to be looking out for their best interest as well. And I will tell you that as soon as I get the signed contract back from this individual, we're going to set up a telephone appointment, and I'm going to sit down with her, and I'm literally going to spend a lot of time saying, okay, I know what your services is. Okay, if I just say your site and what you do, it's really not going to reach this audience. But I think from my conversation with you, you're the type of individual that I really believe that in the industry that you're in, that you're somebody that I think would help my listeners. But I need to figure out, okay, what is the call to action here? What is the call to action? And that's something I need to even work with Evan a little bit more on. And this is my responsibility. I need to say, okay, what is the call to action? Instead of just, the call to action, go to agdesign.com today. It needs to be more. And so call to action, really sit down and work these things out and do whatever you can to make this work for your sponsor. And I will tell you this, if you do this, if you make it work for your sponsor, they will sign on again. And I have had some sponsors in the past, and they're talking already about coming back to us in the future when certain things are released again. And so that's going to be interesting to have them back. And, I'm just excited about all the possibilities out there. Now, the other thing is that, you need to just make sure that when you're doing all this stuff, that you don't lose the focus as a podcaster on why you got into podcasting in the first place. Most people don't get into podcasting just so that they can make money through sponsorships. Most people get into podcasting because they have a passion. Always make sure that your passion is what's driving you and your decisions as you move forward. When you get a sponsor, don't let the sponsorship deal determine the content, the frequency, and all of that. Don't let it demand more of you than you are willing to give, because I will tell you, you could burn out, and you don't want to burn out. Your listeners do not want you to burn out. And so, that's pretty much all I have today. I think I've shared a lot. And I want you to understand that podcast sponsorships are out there, and it's going to take some phone calls and stuff like that. Sure, you can go to some of those services that we mentioned before, but I want to encourage you to just take the opportunity, if you have some, to call some people up that have a business. If you have a good, decent sized audience. Somebody once Twittered the other night, when should at what size audience should I have before I start seeking out sponsorships for my podcast. And a couple people had kind of responded, and here's something that I think of. Let's just say a podcast has 200 listeners, that could either be an excellent time to get a sponsorship, or it could be a horrible time to get a sponsorship, depending on who your audience is, how loyal that community is, how niche that topic is. Listen to this. I have a podcast about podcasting, okay? The people who listen to this podcast are very niche. I mean, the demographics are so targeted here that I'm one of the co-sponsors with Evan Agee in this podcast. That's why I'm always mentioning my Heil microphone, Heil PR40 microphone, the sound that gives you the golden audio podcasting. This thing is amazing, and so I of course I sell lots of other equipment, and you can email me at gspn or cliff@gspn.tv. But anyway, I know that I can sell microphones, and I have. It's been amazing. I mentioned it one time, and I've already sold more than $1,000 in audio equipment after just one advertisement. So if that tells you anything about that. And so, and of course, eventually these folks are going to need, a lot of people are getting ready to launch that podcast. And let me tell you something, the look of your podcast, it really means a lot. And of course, that's what I'm so embarrassed sometimes to tell people to go to podcastanswerman.com. And because, it is a hodgepodge, but you know what? I have so many other irons in the fire that I know you guys are going to put up with that. But I know immediately upon the completion of this other project with Discovering Cincinnati, then we'll get on that Podcast Answer Man. And when you see that, then you're going to be, Evan's phone's not going to stop ringing, but he's already getting some contacts, and I encourage you guys to contact him. If nothing else, just shoot him an email and say, hey, Evan, I thank you for sponsoring Cliff and the Podcast Answer Man, because it means the world to me. And if anything comes up in the future, if I know anybody in the future that will need your services, you are the man I'm going to go to. And you just go to Evan, or go to ageedesign.com and click on the contact page and send him that little note. Anyway, I need to head out of here. It is 12:11 a.m. I got up I went to bed at 4 o'clock this morning, 2 o'clock this morning. I can't remember. It's all blur these days. Anyway, I want to hear from you. What kind of thoughts do you have? What do you want me to cover here on the Podcast Answer Man? Call in your questions, your comments, your feedback. Area code 859-795-4067. You want to buy some audio equipment? Send me an email, cliff@gspn.tv.